The United Kingdom has an interesting approach to its postal service. A rather libertarian approach where post offices are for profit rather than for the public benefit of getting mail sent where it needs to go across the country. And if they aren't successful in that endeavor, they just go out of business. Yeah, imagine your local post office going out of business and there just being no way to get your mail. In fact, each individual post office location is a franchise, like an individual McDonald's location. The land purchased by an owner who has to constantly pay the larger business a licensing fee, that business being the Royal Mail Group plc, a private company, for their right to receive and distribute mail. And that right can be taken away as soon as they're not profitable. Imagine if the entirety of the warehousing, packaging, processing, mailing, and shipping businesses of the United States were entirely controlled by Jeff Bezos, rather than just most of it. Normally the story is America having some weird industry that really should be controlled by the government and therefore protected from going out of business because it is not a business, rather a public service, and the rest of the industrialized world laughing at us as we have to pay $3,000 for an ambulance ride. But here's one of the few cases where our country is actually the gold standard of the world, and it's the UK that has this problem with privatizing an industry that should not be privatized. Between the years 1999 and 2014, the post office prosecuted 736 postmasters and sub-postmasters, an average of one a week, based on information from a recently installed computer system called Horizon. On November 11, 2010, Seema Misra was convicted of stealing £74,000 from the post office branch she ran in West Bayfleet. The evidence against her was simply the missing money from her branch's records at the end of the week, a system of money completely automated by Horizon. There was no proof she had the money, had been suddenly spending a ton more money than she normally had, just that a computer program reported losses. Seema Misra went to prison and her husband was beaten by local people in their home town where they lived because they were seen as thieves who had stolen from their neighbors and people they knew. And that's the thing, is like their whole town, they turned against them because they see them as they stole from us, and they had no counter argument because the judge ruled against them. Nowadays, having been released, she says that had she not been pregnant with her second child, she would have ended her own life. During the trial and the prosecution, it was argued that the program Horizon could not possibly be blamed for reporting the money missing, as it had been brought up in court before, and it had been upheld in court that the program, Horizon, was infallible, and it had therefore been legal precedent in the United Kingdom that Horizon did not have glitches or bugs, did not make money go missing out of nowhere. There had to be a reason, there had to be some human error or human theft for money to go missing from within the Horizon program. The exact amount of money always varied, but this exact same situation played out time and time again. That number I said before, the 736, that is just the people who have had their names cleared. Those are simply the people the court system has gotten to, because yes, Horizon was not infallible. It was in fact the exact reason for this missing money. And the owners of these businesses would have to either report the missing money as a loss, to which many of them decided to replace that money with their own money, as to not have their franchises, the businesses they ran, closed, and themselves be fired for being unprofitable, or to make the completely understandable choice of simply doing the math themselves, reporting different numbers to what the Horizon system reported, and hoping no one noticed that Horizon disagreed with those numbers. And while what I just said sounds like the obvious choice, it's a crime. The crime of false accounting. In fact, this very situation, this dichotomy of lose your business or become a criminal, a false accountant, somehow that's a crime, was set up deliberately by the prosecutors to force victims to admit to a crime. They didn't want to have to go through the arduous task of proving and getting them to admit to the charge of theft. But if you could trick them into pleading guilty to the charge of false accounting, well then you've won your case right there. And this was legitimately a thing that was brought up when all of this came out, when all of this was investigated by actual police, because this private business had its own prosecutors, its own internal investigators that were allowed to investigate their own employees and prosecute their own employees as criminals in court. And those are the people who kept throwing these postmasters and sub-postmasters in jail. A corporation having its own prosecution to send its own employees to jail if they end up unprofitable for a single week in their entire lives. It just sounds like the most dystopian future thing I have ever heard in my entire life. But that part happened, and it had nothing to do with computer glitches, just corruption. If you ask me, what you should do is, if a court case used Horizon as evidence, that person is innocent, and the case is thrown out. No exceptions. Your court system messed up, all these people go free now. If you accidentally set free a guilty person, that doesn't matter. You messed up, they all go free now. Horizon was one of Fujitsu IT's, was one of their only profitable contracts in a country that was quickly turning on them. They are a Japanese-based company, and the people in the UK didn't like them very much, due to several other botched contracts with other UK government organizations. The UK Post Office has a chief executive rather than a postmaster general because they were a business, not a post office. And its then chief executive Adam Crozier was desperate to stop the millions of dollars in losses his company was then taking on. Almost as though the post office is an inherently unprofitable organization and therefore shouldn't be treated as a business. Crozier and Fujitsu IT knew all about the major failings of the Horizon program about as far back as 2003. But as it was far more profitable for the both of them to keep quiet about the entire situation, they continued to lie to the public and knowingly let hundreds of innocent people rot in prison. Not everyone chose to rot. This next story almost didn't make this video because of how upsetting it is. It wouldn't be right to make a video about this whole story and not include really the most harrowing tale of them all, just because it's upsetting. So just be warned. While researching this, I came across the tragic story of Martin Griffiths, a man who just had everything taken from him. Again, the way these UK post offices work, this was his business. This wasn't just him working for something the government set up for him, like a post office location would be in America. This was his business he built from the ground up, and he was running, and he was proud enough so that when certain discrepancies in the money at the end of each week were to come up, he would pay out of his own pocket to get the money back up to where it should have been if this money didn't just disappear within Horizon's systems. Once he was unable to come up with the £23,000 that were missing, and he was temporarily let go and his location closed down. That didn't last very long. He was reinstated the months of January 2012 and October 2013. More than £57,000 went missing in somewhere within Horizon's broken system. He turned to his parents for help, and they gave him their life savings to protect his investment in his business. Life savings Horizons ate like an arcade game, eating the quarters of a kid whose parents aren't watching and who doesn't know what a gambling addiction is yet. The last straw came in May of 2013 when two armed robbers broke into his post office location, smashed his hand, threatened his life, made him open his safe, stole £54,000 of his parents' money. That September, Martin Griffiths wrote a letter apologizing to his family before stepping in front of a bus, and he died 3 weeks later in the hospital. According to documents provided by Fujitsu IT Company, in 1999, as in the year they implemented this program into the post office systems, a update called the missing payments node was found within their systems, and they thought they fixed it. In 1999 alone, $1.8 million went missing due to a known software error. This was as they were implementing this system into the post office. They knew about it. They, that year, lost $1.8 million, pounds. They thought they fixed it. I do believe that to be true, but then again, in 2003, they realized, no, we never did fix that glitch, and continued to let people suffer like this. After a case in which 39 of the wrongfully convicted postmasters and sub-postmasters' convictions were overturned, Martin Griffiths' nephew, Samuel Caveen, said, and I quote, "Today's news is welcome, but a reminder that not everyone in the post office scandal was prosecuted. Some just had their livelihoods, reputations, and life savings and well-being stolen from them. The fatal effects of this cannot be overturned by a judge." Make no mistake, the people who continued to cover up the problems Horizon had for over a decade, they are not just corrupt businessmen who put profit before morality. They are cold-blooded murderers. Neil Hudgall, who represented 29 of the former sub-postmasters, said, "The post office has been found to have been an organization that not only turned a blind eye to the failings of its hugely expensive IT system, but positively promoted a culture of cover-up and subterfuge in the pursuit of reputation and profit. They readily accepted that loss of life, liberty, and sanity for many ordinary people as a price worth paying in that pursuit." The fact that only 736 people have had their convictions overturned, and yet they are reviewing 900 people or more, means that they're still 6 years after we have known for a fact that these convictions are bogus. 200 innocent people's lives are still hanging in the balance of a slow, cold, and uncaring UK court system. Breaking news, actually. Only 4 hours before recording this video, 12 more people had their convictions overturned. Which, yeah, great news, right? People stopped going to jail for this in 2014. And they just had their convictions overturned in July 19th, 2021. Very bittersweet good news. And did all of them go to jail in 2014, or are there some people who went to jail for this in 2002, right? Who had their convictions just overturned? I don't know. Thank you for watching through to the end of the video. I know this was a rough one. I usually wouldn't want to talk about such dark topics. It's just that this was something that I would think more people should know about. Comment down below what topics you want to see me cover in the future.